Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad to be here. It's been a while. I actually forgot to update you about my two, like, okay, so last time I updated you, I had read two books at the beginning of the year, and now I have read four more. So I'm gonna talk about those four today. And I was gonna do them like two at a time to make these vlogs a bit like lighter, but I guess I just kind of forgot about that. It's been I've had a lot on my mind, you can say. So I know that you I know it doesn't make any difference to you, maybe if it's two or four books at a time, but for me it feels like, because I like to talk and I'm not good at editing, so I want these videos to be as short as possible, and for that to happen, I was gonna do them two by two. But yeah, and also the first two that I'm gonna talk about today, I have already returned to the library, so I'm gonna have to pull up the image on screen, and that's a bit fumbly, you know. That's a bit it's not easy, but well, it's kind of easy, but it takes a yeah. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about today is I have a variety of ranking today. So it's like 1 3 star, 1 3.5 star, 1 5 star, and 1 4 star. So that's kind of interesting. So let's get into it with the first book. Let's see if I can find this. Okay, so the last time I did this, I had to choose my my favorites. Yeah, okay, there they are. Let's see. So this is the one. So I put the English title at the bottom. So this is an Agatha Christie book with Hercule Poirot, Peril at End House, and in Swedish the translation is Badortsmysteriet, which translates into the resort mystery. So it's so funny because in this book, Hercule Poirot and Hastings, his his wingman, or what do you want to call him, they are on vacation, so they are at the resort, you can say, and then the murder actually takes place at a house nearby where a young woman lives. And so the mystery is that there's this young woman that has been through different. When Hercule Poirot meets her at the resort, she tells him about or he hears about all these kind of accidents that she's been through, like 3 or 4 accidents, and he immediately senses some danger, and he's like, well, that doesn't sound like accidents. And one of them being that the last one being that when they are sitting and talking, he and her, he's she has this hat on, and there's like this, they think it's a bee that just flies around, flies like this, but something lands, uh, uh, what's the words? Please, English, come to me. Like a couple of feet away from Hercule Poirot's there. So, and he realizes that's a bullet. So he realizes that the hole in her hat, because she drops her hat when this happens, and she leaves it there, and he picks it up and sees that there's a bullet hole in it, and that's when he finds the bullet. And from there on, he's trying to solve this mystery, and it has its twists and turns, and Hercule Poirot is being Hercule Poirot. And I gave this a 3 star because I kind of enjoyed the mystery and the twists and turns of it. Um, but I'm kind of over the whole women can only be hysterical, on the verge of fainting, or cunning. In these books, with Hercule Poirot mainly, I have, because I haven't read many of Agatha Christie's other books yet. but I'm gonna see if there's a difference, because I'm curious to see if there is a difference. Because in these books, I have come to realize that this is the view of women, and I kind of understand it's they're books of their time. They're written in the 1930s, and the society had a different view of women. But I also feel like it's very much Hercule Poirot, because they also talk about women being more liberated and not that constrained, and they can like have bathing suits on and enjoy life a bit more. They can be independent and that sort of thing. And Hastings doesn't seem to have the same views that Hercule Poirot has, and Hercule Poirot is like, he's always blaming that he's not blaming his age, because he can't do no wrong. So he's kind of, oh, these are the times now when women are like this. And he's like this. I'm just so sick of it. So I don't know if these books are for me anymore. I did enjoy the TV series I watched with my dad a while back. But And I remember in the TV series, he was like a quirky little detective, that always ended up being right at the end, and it was kind of fun. But you also saw more of the other people in a way, and their points of view. And in the books, it's mostly Hastings and Hercule Poirot's point of view, because the books are written from Hastings' point of view mainly. It's like he tells the tale of the mystery, and when Poirot's point of view comes in, it's always I'm not a fan. But in the TV series, of course, you could see like more of different points of views, and I think that helped in a way. Reading the books, I'm just so over it. And so the 3 stars is because I did enjoy reading it. It was kind of fast read, and I enjoyed the mysteries and the twists and turns and all of that. And then the reason it only has 3 stars is because no, I don't want to read it again. I barely want to read. I don't think I'm gonna read another Poirot book in a while. This is my second one in 2 months, and it's enough for me. I'm gonna see if I can read some other Agatha Christie books this year. So, it was a fast read and that sort of thing, but I didn't like the view of women. I was so over it, like a third in, maybe even a quarter into the book. So, there's like, I think the only positive thing was the mystery, the speed, like the pace of the book. Um, I don't know. So those are my views on this book. So 3 stars for Agatha Christie's Peril at End House. And then the next one is the third book in a series. And it's this one. You see it lying there on my lap when I'm reading it. So it's Beautiful Creatures, book 3, because in Swedish they're all called Beautiful Creatures, and this also have like the subtitle of The Highest Price, the Biggest Sacrifice. And in English, this book is called Beautiful Chaos, if I am not misremembering things. So this one I gave 3.5 stars because I did enjoy it, but this was my least favorite so far because it had minimal character development, I felt. And also there were so many things happening, like towards the end of the book, like maybe even the third quarter, the last third of the book. There were so many things happening that even though I read it in Swedish, it was just I had to put it down. I did read all the way through like in one sitting, like the last third of the book, but I had to like take pauses because I had to untangle my mind and really keep up with it. So it was too fast paced for me, and it was more fast paced than the first two books. And I did not enjoy the ending. Okay, so I am actually in. As soon as I put this down, I had to put myself on in the queue for the fourth book at the library. So I think I'm like number 3 or 4 or something. So it will maybe take a couple of months for me to get to that book. I think. So the weird thing is that I'm buddy reading this with a friend, and she's listening to the audiobook in Swedish, and the last book, the fourth book, isn't actually it's actually not available in audiobook in Sweden. I think it was because this is kind of how it works with translated fiction in Sweden. That if as soon as one of the books in a series isn't popular enough, they stop. So what I think happened was that the third book, which in my experience so far is my least favorite, wasn't popular enough for them to translate and put the energy into the fourth book as an audiobook. So that's kind of rough for me and my friend, and so mainly for her because I can read it in Swedish because it's translated into Swedish in like a physical form, but not in audiobook form. And she's not into reading physical books that much. So uh yeah, that's kind of because she I think she says it's because she's neuro spicy or neurodivergent, and she has a yeah, she consumes stories better audiobook wise. So, and I can understand that. So she's gonna make a go for it at reading the physical book at some point, but it might take a while. Which is kind of a bummer for both of us. We wanted to read them together. So I really want to know how it ends because the cliffhanger at the end of book 3 is like, what the F are you thinking? So I'm not going to talk much about the story in this book, but I think what brings the rating down, because I rated the other books like 4.5 stars, is or 4 stars I think, is it was too fast paced in the end. It was like the second book was like 700 pages almost in Swedish, and this was just 450 or something, and I was like, dude, you could have just extended it a bit. You could have just put some things in it and made it longer so it wasn't that cramped. But I think there is one aspect that made it impossible to do that because, like, yeah, there are some relationship things at the end of the book that I think they would just have been, that would have felt dragged out if they had just made the book longer. So I think it was a lose-lose kind of situation there. I can't really talk much about the writing style because I read it in Swedish, and it's a translator that I have enjoyed before, and I think she's really good. I think I think no, I don't remember her name, but I have enjoyed her before. Her writing or her translations. So the only thing in a lot of Swedish books is the typos. I'm not a fan of typos. I'm like, oh my god, just put an extra e in there. So that's a 3.5 stars. So I had a 3 stars and a 3.5 stars, and those are back at the library now, and I'm awaiting the fourth book of the Beautiful Creature series. So I think the series is actually called something else, right? But for me, it's like the Beautiful Creature series. So after that, I read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, but I read it in Swedish, and it's called Med varma hälsningar. And the translation of that is with warm greetings. And I have seen Yours Truly being talked about all over booktube, and at the same time I've been waiting for this to be available in Sweden at the libraries, and I never put the two together, even because it's rare that I write like letters in English where I have to end with like a polite phrase. And when I do, I most often use best regards. So for me, yours truly, that phrase isn't a part of my like everyday vocabulary, but med varma hälsningar is, because that's a common one in Swedish, and I didn't. It was just like a mismatch in my head, like the synapses didn't really connect. And then when I held this in my arms, and I was like, I wonder what this is called. What's the original title of this? Yours truly. Oh, you know. But I did want to read it in Swedish because I read the first one in Swedish, and I prefer to read a series, to continue on with a series in the same language, you know. So if I've chosen to do it in Swedish, I want to continue doing it in Swedish, which we're gonna get back to with my fourth book of this video. So remember what I enjoy. So this was a 5-star for me. Oh my lord, I think this is gonna be on my top. If this is not on my top 2025 books, then oh man, my book year of 2025 had to have been so great. You know, I'm looking forward to this year, and if this is not on my top books of the year, I'm gonna be so happy, because if I read enough books that tops this one, I'm gonna be the luckiest guy on earth. So, or the luckiest reader on earth. So I really enjoyed this book. I read this in 2 days. The first day, I read about 90 pages. And then on the second day, I read like 300. And let's see how many pages this is. Okay, so this is 450-ish pages. I read 378 pages on day 2, which means I read 70 pages, give or take, day 1. I just ate this up, and I cried and I cried and I cried, and I just sobbed my way through this. I was sitting in the sofa on this end, and my partner was sitting on this end, and he was doing his stuff and I was doing my stuff, just reading and reading and reading and pausing to eat, that kind of thing. And at the end I was like, look, and I asked him, like, did you notice how much this book made me cry? And he was like, no. He's so funny. He was so into his own stuff. He didn't really. And I think he's gotten used to my, like, my faces and my, because when we watch movies or like a series on Netflix or something, I do this as well. I'm so I'm so, I express my emotions a lot with like laughters and snorts and like and that sort of thing. And I do the same when I read books. So he's like used to me sitting there by myself and just making all of these noises and even crying my eyes out. I really, really enjoyed this. This is a 5-star, like 5 plus plus plus. And I want this. So this is now on my Villhöver-lista, my wants, but I need because I want list. Because I want to reread this like soon. I'm even thinking, for the first time since starting my reading journey again, I think I'm contemplating rereading this before I have to give it back to the library. And I have to give it back to the library on Wednesday, and today is Sunday. I'm even contemplating like extending my loan, but I think I have 3 books that are on their way home to me, like to my library, so I can get them, and we can only borrow 3 books a week. So if I extend this loan this week, I have to put one of the other ones out of the competition, you know. So that's kind of my struggle right now. I think I'm gonna let this marinate within me for a while and then get back to it at some other point. Maybe, hopefully, I can give it to myself when I on my birthday or something, and I will be like, oh, so happy. So, definitely a favorite so far. Yours truly by Abby Jimenez. So, I haven't even told you what this is about. Uh, so this is a romance, a rom-com. I think it's supposed to be a rom-com, but I didn't find it very funny. More sobbing. Oh, they are so cute. This is amazing. How wonderful are they? This is so sad because this is about Brianna, and Brianna is a doctor at a hospital, and it's the main plot of the romance, but it's also kind of they're like a dual plot story here. There's one plot where she works at a hospital as a doctor. There's a new doctor, and then they have a love story. Okay, so the new doctor is the what's it called, the love interest. And then at the same time, Brianna's brother needs a new kidney because of an autoimmune disease that he has. And there's like this story around. I don't want to say too much because I really want you to read this and enjoy it. And I don't want you to know, because I knew nothing. When I went into this book, the only thing I knew was that it was about Brianna, and she had been the friend of the female main character in the first book in this kind of standalone series. So that's like all I knew, and I loved going into it and not knowing, and it made it so much more. I think it affected me more emotionally. So go into it blind. It's amazing. One little heads up, or content warning, is that if you know someone with like a kidney disease or that has had a kidney transplant or something like that, you're gonna cry even more, I think. So just a heads up for that, because it's yeah, that's just the subplot in it, I would say. So yeah, and then the last book that I have read so I have read 6 books in January already, but the first book in January I read like over the New Year's, so I finished it in January. I read most of it in January, so I count it. But yeah, so this is my sixth, sixth, sixth book. And in Swedish it's called Den förlorade arvtagaren, and in English The Hawthorne Legacy. So this is I don't know what the series is called. The Heritage Games? Could it be? Could it be? Because it doesn't say in this book what the series is called in English. It just says Inheritance Games. Inheritance Games. That's what it's called. So this is the second book in that series. And I ate this up as well. I read this in 2 days. I read most of it yesterday. Mainly because I didn't want to do anything else. It was more like, what can I, because I was in a weird mood yesterday. I was like, everything bored me. I watched Netflix and I was bored. I watched YouTube and I was bored. I tried to do stuff and I was bored. And the only thing that didn't bore me to death was this. So I read it like because it was the only thing I could stand doing. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it immensely. So in this book, this is the second book in the series, and we follow Avery Grams. I never remember her middle name. Avery Grams, that has inherited this fortune from like a stranger, Mr. Hawthorne, Tobias Hawthorne, and they are trying to solve the puzzle of why she inherited the money. Yeah, they're still doing that in this book, but that's fine. I think the whole series is kind of, yeah, I think that's kind of the plot of the series. So um we continue the mystery in this book, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it because it's the second book in the series, but I'm going to tell you why I didn't give it a 5-star, because I think I gave the first one 4.5 or 5-star. 4.5 probably, because I only give 5 stars to books I want to reread, or I can see myself rereading. I'm not really there with this book. I'm kind of torn, because I could see, after reading of this book, I could see myself rereading the series at some point, because the mystery is so intricate. It's so complicated that I could actually reread it and still be like, oh, you know. But but the reason I only give this one 4 stars is mainly because of I didn't really I wasn't blown away by, or that's the wrong choice of words. So in the first book, I I could kind of see why the subplot of the romance. So with the main plot in this, I really enjoy. I enjoy the main plot. I enjoy all the twists and turns and the intricacy of it, and I really really enjoy it. So the one thing that brings the ranking down is because some of the relationships in this is not believable to me. I find myself thinking every time some people interact, especially when it comes to romance, I'm like, I don't see it. I can genuinely not understand why these two people are even interested in each other and where that comes from, because in the first book it's like a physical attraction, sure. They're teenagers, sure. I can see that. And then in this book it's kind of a tug of war between like the emotions, and I don't understand the depth of the emotions because they don't make sense to me. And I think it's a me problem. I think it is because we only get Avery's perspective, and and she and I are not nothing alike. I can't really relate to her at all. I find her interesting and intriguing and also kind of annoying at times, which is fine. I like that she's like a multi-layered character, and I understand. I can on a mental or like a psychological level, I understand her struggles and her issues, like her daddy issues and that sort of thing. But when she interacts with people she is interested in, and mainly because she can't put a finger on why she's interested, and that makes me not be able to understand why she's interested. If she can't understand her own feelings, she's not even uh, considering them. We don't get to follow her emotional turmoil in that regard, and we don't get to follow her, like all of the it's like as soon as she starts to think about, I don't understand why I'm so interested in these two people, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, no, why, please tell me. And then something just happens and he's got great abs, and he's got gray eyes, and I'm like, what, why, what? And if it was like, okay, I don't understand myself, I'm not gonna care about it, I'm just gonna follow my instinct, sure, I would understand that, and I would be like, okay, you're following your instincts, girl, okay, you're following your libido, great, wonderful, jump on it. you know but we don't get that. So I'm not gonna talk more about that, because that's one aspect that I'm really not enjoying in this book. And then the other one, there's one more. And this is really mainly, so these are the two main reasons why it's not a 5-star. And the second reason is I don't know what they look like. Okay, in the first book, I remember getting like somewhat of a description of all the four Hawthorne boys in this, and Avery and her sister. In this book, the physical description of her sister is still consistent, and that's still there. But with everyone else, there's only mentioning of like the color of Grayson's eyes and his hair, and then Jameson's abs. And it doesn't give me enough to separate them, because if it's like a story with um four very different people, like four very different people in when it comes to like gender, race, sexuality, and that sort of thing, I can easily, tell them apart. But these four brothers they're different in their personalities, sure. I wouldn't, but not really. They aren't really that different. They just have different like driving forces within them. But otherwise, they're kind of copy paste. To me, that's my experience. I'm not saying that the author did that. To me, that's the case. In this book, in the first book, it was more obvious that they are four different people. In this book, I feel like the author kind of forgot to take us on that journey again, to continue the journey of this is this person, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person. So because when I started reading this book, I was like, when I was introduced to them again, I was like, okay, but which one is which one? Okay, yeah, okay, that's the younger one, that's the oldest one. That's kind of the only way to tell them apart, like the age of them, like that kind of thing. And it really bothered me. So my point is, it really, really bothered me that I couldn't get a clear picture of what they looked like and who, and in that regard, tell who's who. And it didn't really help me to understand Avery's point of view, even though it's the only DAMN thing we get in this book. So even though we get her perspective, and she's supposed to have relationships with these guys, four different kind of relationships, wherein two are deeper relationships. We don't get enough information on what she builds this on, except for the kind of driving forces in this mystery game. Yeah. So I wanna read the other two books. I don't know if they are gonna be on my priority like top, because now that I'm talking about this kind of bugs me even more. But remember when I told you that if I have chosen to read a series in Swedish, or if I have chosen to read a series in English, I want to continue on in that language. Well, guess what? The other two books in this series, I think there's 4 or 5. But anyway, this is the last book in the series that's actually available in Swedish. So if I'm going to continue it, I have to either wait and hope that the third book comes out in Swedish soon, or I have to switch. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm kind of intrigued to see what difference it makes. But I think that one part of this being so easy to read and easy to digest is that it's one of my favorite translators. Her name is Ylva Stålmark. Yeah, Ylva Stålmark. So that's one of the people, the translators that I enjoy. I find myself like when I enjoy Swedish books that are translated, and I most often see her name as translator. So I'm intrigued to try the third book in English. I think it's The Last Gamble. I don't remember. It's red. I remember the book cover being red. So I have put myself in line to borrow that at the library, but I'm like number 5, so it's gonna take quite a while for me to get to that book. And somewhere along the line, I just hope that they're gonna continue translating these books. I don't know when this came out. I think maybe it was. So in Swedish it came out last year, and in English 3 years ago. So they're kind of slow, you know. So I'm not confident that I'm gonna get a hold of this in the third book in Swedish this year, 2025. I'm not confident at all about that. So just wish me luck. So I did give it a 4 star. Yeah, I'm gonna stick to that because of the fact that I'm so intrigued by the plot and I enjoy everything else. So like the things I didn't enjoy that I've rambled on about for way too long now. They are minor details. They are like make the things that makes me frown when I read it and just make me pause for a moment and be like, okay, but why? And then I'm like, okay, don't care, moving on with the mystery. So because I can see myself rereading these in the future, maybe at some point, because of the story, that brings it up a bit more. So if I didn't have that feeling, maybe I would give it a 3.5 stars or 3 stars. But because of that, I'm gonna yeah keep it at 4. So yeah, I don't know what I would have felt like if I read it in English. So we'll see. You will notice when I put it on a TBR at some point to read. So I've actually I only have like one. No, I'm reading. Yeah, I only have a few books left on my January TBR, which makes me have room for rereading at the end of the month if I want to, or I can just go into my February TBR if I want to do that. So, yeah, I will see you soon. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them, if you had the same issues that I did, if you enjoyed yours truly the way that I did, as much as I did. Have you, because I realize now that this is like all of these books are series, right? None of them are standalone books, I realize. So yeah, uh, that's the start. Well, yeah, no, okay. So Agatha Christie is not in a series; it's a standalone series that as well. The Hercule Poirot books are a standalone series, and I have so far read book 4 and book 8 of the Hercule Poirot mysteries. I'm not gonna do that anymore. Give me tips on an Agatha Christie book that you know of or that you enjoyed without Hercule Poirot that I might try. Yeah. See you in the next one. Tjingeling!